Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela De La Mora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers. I'm going to try recording this episode without an outline at all. And because I'm going to share a story that's a little bit vulnerable, but also gave me insight and can help give you insight into your true motivations behind why you want certain things. And it might seem like, well, yeah, I just want this thing because I want it, whether it's, more money or to hit a certain financial milestone in your business or to be in a relationship or get married or have a baby or have a certain job title, right? I think oftentimes, especially if the thing that we want is something that we believe would be universally recognized as like, yeah, why wouldn't you want that? Either a sign of success or a social marker or just something that sounds really nice. Nobody really ever questions like, why do you want this thing? Are you sure you want this thing? And the story that I'm going to share is around rehoming my puppy. And it's vulnerable. Like I almost didn't want to share it. It's been a few months now. So I feel like it's a little bit more like I'm okay with sharing it. But the reason that I wasn't sure if I was going to put it in a podcast episode or what, whenever I do share something, I always think of like, who else needs to hear this? How could this story be of service? How does this story illustrate just human behavior, human tendency that others can possibly see themselves in? And that's what I always think about with my journey, especially when we go through something that is, we feel ashamed about or that we feel sad about. I always think of like, how could this be a vehicle for others to see themselves in and understand themselves better? So before I kind of dive into the story, the reason that I ultimately did decide to share this on the podcast is because I came back from an event this weekend that I went to. And in this event, it was for women of color. It was like a business conference. One of my mentors, she led the event, and it was just like, you're in the space of people who look like you, and there's these beautiful stories that are being shared and so much energy in the space. And so one of my favorite things about going to events is not just what is spoken about on stage. That's always really it's wonderful, all the things. But to me, my favorite part is the conversations that happen in the margins of time, in between sessions, after, in breaks, when you're walking to the bathroom or back, when you are in line to get a coffee. Those are my favorite parts because that's really where you get to observe humans in their natural state. And so me as a coach, my job is literally to observe humans and get curious as to why they're doing certain things, why they think certain things, why they feel certain things, just to be curious to understand your experience so that I can help and guide and lead you, as your coach. But even when I'm not, it just helps me to be a better mirror, space holder, guide. I believe we all have different purposes in this world, and many of them are just to be guides for others. You may say something that really sticks with someone, or maybe just seeing them, hearing them is really important. And so I, being the coach that I am and being the person who's had the life experience that I've had over these 4 decades on this earth, am able to pick up and see things that maybe others can't just because I've lived a little more life. I've just lived a little more life. I've had, painful experiences. I've reinvented myself many, many times. And so one of the things that really stood out to me was a common thread amongst people looking at the folks on stage and admiring them, right? And then pointing to some sort of insufficiency as to where they are right now. And meaning when I have X, then I will be Y, or I will feel Y, right? And so whatever, that's a financial milestone or whatever. And they tend to think okay, if I just follow in this person's footsteps and do exactly what they've done, then I will also feel successful, complete, respected, enough, loved. People will like me. And when they may not be saying it outright, but when you really listen within and you read between the lines, that's a lot of what comes up, right? And I say this because these are brilliant brilliant women. Like when you really understand like what jobs they had before, where they went, to university, not that you need to go to university to be, brilliant, but these are brilliant women. And sometimes you are so smart. You are so, so, so smart that you convince yourself that you actually really want that thing because of some noble reason, when in reality, why you want it is because it's going to help you escape how you feel about yourself today. Okay. And I say this with love, and we all do it, but sometimes we want a thing. We want it because it's going to help us, we believe, to escape how we feel about ourselves today. And this is why you can still desire that thing, but the reasons why really matter, because what happens is when you get there, you realize that it isn't either you brought yourself with you and you brought your own thoughts with you, and you still feel that way. In fact, maybe now there's like a bigger gap in terms of like how you feel, or you realize it isn't actually what you wanted at all. So I say this as someone who in business really, really thought like, oh, once when I first started, it was like 6 figures and I hit 6 figures my first year. And then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to hit multiple 6 figures. And then I did that and I brought myself with me. This is the thing, is we bring ourselves with us wherever we go, right? So like I said, this is a business example of just something that I saw throughout the weekend that I was able to pick up on, and really picking up on the thread of like, when you want something, if your reason is so you can feel something or be something, that's generally not a good reason, especially if it's so I can feel like successful, or I can feel like enough, or I can feel respected or safe. It's like, how can you find it now? So to transition into what rehoming my puppy taught me, and the reason that I'm even talking about this is because, again, I am so, so smart that I am able to pick up on things, I'd say, when it comes to my business, just because I'm kind of wired to look for, like, kind of call myself out on my shit when it comes to my business. But this puppy, I really was like, no, I really, really want it. I thought about it for months. So to backtrack a little bit, I decided around Q3 of last year that I was thinking about adopting a dog. I thought about it honestly for years, to be honest. I almost adopted a dog during the pandemic. My daughter and I were living in Portland in this apartment. It was a dog-friendly building. I actually wanted this dog for a while. So in my mind, I was like, I couldn't possibly have not thought this through. Like, come on. I'm the person who makes spreadsheets for decisions. I literally made a spreadsheet before I ever had a baby to be like, what would the tax implications be? And like, I've made spreadsheets for everything. And so the fact that I'd wanted this dog for a while, I thought about it. I talked to people who had dogs. I constantly would think about things like, if we were going on this trip, how would I solve this if I had a dog? Oh, if I did this thing, how would I solve for this if I had a dog? I thought about it for years, right? So this is how freaking smart I am. And I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you this story, because it actually helped me realize that I was making this decision from lack and not enoughness. And I was trying to solve it with this decision. I was trying to solve it with the dog. So fast forward to Q3 of last year. In retrospect, Q3 of last year, I was massively depressed. I just was really feeling, it was just really going through it, right? Then we get into Q4 and I start to talk to friends of mine. I'm researching breeds. I had a whole ChatGPT thread going about dog breeds and temperaments and preparing my house for a dog and what to expect and all the things. And so I was like, there's no way I'm not prepared. I have done so much research that I finally got to a point where I talked to I talked to a couple folks, but I talked to one of my clients who had adopted a puppy, and she really was just like, hey, it's going to suck for a while. Not going to lie. I definitely called my mom crying and was like, what did I do? Right. I remember her telling me this. I called my mom crying, was like, what did I get myself into? This is so hard. And she's like, but ultimately, you get through it. And, you have such a bond with this dog, and all the things. And so I was like, what I thought at the time was, there's no way it's harder than raising a child, like a baby. When I think about me having Pi, I woke up multiple times a night for years. I breastfed until she was 2.5. So I was like, I hear them, but they also don't have children. So I dismissed it. I was like, they also don't have children. So they can't know how hard it is because I've done something harder, which granted, yes, raising a child and being a single parent absolutely is harder across the board. It's just different. So I dismissed it and I didn't ask questions that I normally would have. So then I decide, okay, I've gotten the breed down. We had picked a name, all the things, found a breeder, placed the deposit, was counting down to this all this time, right? And then buying all the things, prepping the house. And then we go and like we adopt the puppy. He gets old enough that they can bring him to my house. They bring him to the house. And my daughter was so happy, obviously, and very, very quickly I realized like I didn't know what to expect. So what happened is like I am just coming out of depression and burnout, right? I mean, it doesn't even really make sense. And I was preparing for a launch as well. This was my reclamation launch in February. So we adopt the dog, the puppy. He comes home in January. And then right away, I noticed like, oh my gosh, this is so much harder because I already have a child and now I have a business and I have client calls and I'm waking up multiple times a night and I'm spending time in the morning, like getting, cleaning up his like little puppy pen and like all the things. And just very quickly, I was like overwhelmed because number one, I don't have somebody to share the responsibility with. That's one. And even if you have a puppy on your own, if you don't have a child, that exponentially makes it easier. If you don't have a business, that also makes it easier because you're not thinking about, like my actions affect whether or not I get paid, right? So I think all three of those things, whenever I thought of anybody else who told me their experience with having a puppy, they either did not have children, they had a job and not a business, or they had a partner to share the responsibility with. They weren't a single parent entrepreneur with a puppy. So right away, I just like felt, it's like I sank deeper into this depression because I was just like, I feel like I can't get anything done. I think I realized there, like, I don't want to have a dog. Personally, me personally don't want to have a dog. I got him because in all retrospect, like I really had to sit with this of like, what is my reason? I adopted this puppy because I thought I was giving my child a sibling because I can't give her a sibling because I'm 44 years old and I'm not even dating, right? And I think it was just a lot of realizations around like after I turned 40 and like a lot of the things that come up around like I always wanted to have 2 children, but I'm not in a place to like trust again to date, to be able to like even let and to try. And I wouldn't want to place that sort of pressure on dating and all of that. So I think a few years ago I had to just release that. I had to release like me ever birthing another child again, right? But I don't think that I realized that I was still trying to make up for it somewhere else. And I think the fact that towards the end of last year, I think I became a lot more like aware of what I thought was a deficit in our household around her dad not being, around. That came up because he came to visit her for Christmas and her birthday. And it really like activated some sadness in her. And we had a lot of like talks around, how she wants a dad. She wants to have a dad. Her friends at school, have dads. And just the sadness around why her dad can't live with us and, not really being able to fully explain that story that I think in retrospect, it made perfect sense. Like I was trying to complete our household. I didn't really want a dog. I was trying to complete our household. And I say this because this is back to, do you want the thing because you really want it? What's your reason? My true reason at the time was so that I could feel like complete. And that's not a good reason to do anything, so that you could feel complete, so that our family could feel complete. And so very quickly, I think I realized, number one, I'm going to be the one doing all the majority of the work. She's a child. She has school. She can help with little things, but I didn't sign up for this for me. And it was so sad because at this point, like we hired a trainer, she came to the house, I had all the stuff, like I was prepared logically, but I had signed myself up for an identity that I didn't want for the wrong reasons, and it wasn't fair. And so I really grieved a lot in making the decision of, even if though all these problems could technically be solvable, I didn't do this for the right reasons. And in me deciding to rehome this puppy, I actually kind of grieved not ever birthing a child again and having my daughter be an only child, and possibly if she ever had a sibling, it would be because I ended up with a partner who had a child, but not being able to give that, and an acceptance that the home that I have created is complete, that our family is complete. It makes me cry thinking about it. But I think about how often we carry those insufficiencies with us and we attach them to our goals, and we make that goal or that decision responsible for us feeling complete, that we make that goal responsible for us being enough, for our current circumstance to be enough, right? And so I decided ultimately, I reached back out to the breeder. They were wonderful. They were like, I already have someone in mind. They wanted a puppy from this litter, but they were on vacation. They didn't respond in time. And I reached out to them and they're interested. And they are the most wonderful family. Like our puppy, his name was Canelo. He was a mini golden doodle, brown and white. They have triplets that were going away to college and they were going to be empty nesters, like to grow up with triplets that were going away for college. So they like wanted him. They wanted, to basically to just love on him. They have a huge backyard. They live next to a river. They're wonderful, wonderful people. They like literally surprised their kids with Canelo. They renamed him now, but they surprised him. They sent me the video. They're such wonderful people. And he could not have ended up in a better home. And I bawled my eyes out the next day. Like we rehomed him. It was President's Day, Monday. The next day I couldn't even function. I dropped my daughter off at school. We were both sad. We both cried. We cried on the way back. And we talked about our family. And she said, to be honest, sometimes our family does feel incomplete. But I think I fed her that line because I said it. I said, honey, like, it's hard for me to explain like why we have to rehome him. It's the best thing for him. But she said it to me. She's like, I do think our family feels incomplete. And I was like, honey, I know that it feels like that. And it makes sense that you like miss having a dad. That's so valid. And, just know that, that I'm here for you. I love you. And, that you have so many people that love you, like abuelito and abuelita and your tias and your tío. And, she has her dad, but he just lives in the UK and they FaceTime and stuff. And like, it's obviously not the same, but it really like, I released something so deep within me that I always felt like I was missing something. And I really was so sure. Like it cost me a lot of money to make this mistake or to make this realization because like I obviously bought all this stuff and I adopted the dog and whatever, and I didn't all get that back. But that was the lesson that I needed to learn. And I felt so guilty. I felt so horrible because I had thoughts about people who like adopted puppies and then they were like, I don't know, I might need to rehome them. I'm like, you didn't think about it. Clearly, I was the most logical, smart research person, and I didn't realize that I was making this decision from a place of insufficiency of my life and myself not being enough of what I'm giving my daughter, essentially. And what I did was I said, the best thing that you can do when you make a mistake in front of your child or that your child is then in pain as a result of it. This is another reason it felt painful to me was because when I was 8, we adopted a dog from a shelter and did no research. I wasn't able to care for this dog by myself. My parents didn't allow the dog in the house. The dog howled. They totally left it up to me to take care of this dog as an 8-year-old, and we had to rehome him. And my daughter is 8. And I just remember thinking I just did to her what happened to me when I was 8, where I lost this dog, and I still think about it and I'm still sad. And I just did this to her. What a horrible parent, like I just had this thought. So I said, the best thing you can do when you make a mistake as a parent or you have an oversight, this is for anybody who is a parent, is thinking about becoming a parent, you are going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that hurt your kids. And the best thing that you can do is repair, own up to it and repair. And so that day, Tuesday, I couldn't function. I canceled all my calls. I canceled my reclamation calls. I told them I was grieving. I was sad. I would talk to them about what it was when I had the capacity. And then I went and I said, what's a meaningful thing that I can do in picking my daughter up? So number one, when I dropped her off at school, I told the teacher, we're sad about this, just so you know, if she cries, like this is what happened. Then I went and I found a stuffy that was a mini golden doodle stuffy. It was like an FAO Schwartz. It has a little like adoption papers and all that stuff. So I went and I bought it. It had the little adoption papers. So I said, I'm going to bring her a new Canelo, like a new little mini golden doodle stuffy that she can love on and kind of like redirect her love to. Number two, I made her a card. I made her a card because she makes cards for people. Her love language is making cards for people. So I made her a card. I put our pictures in it. He was only with us for 2 weeks. But I put those pictures and I said, I know you're sad. I love you very much. Canelo will always be part of our family. I gave that to her. I picked her up from school. She was just so overjoyed. Like she cried a little bit. We talked about it a little bit more. And she says she's still sad, but she understands why I did it. And now that is like one of her favorite stuffies. It sleeps in the bed with us. And she was able to redirect her love, towards the stuffed animal. And but I bawled my eyes out like that whole day because I think it was like me holding on to years of wanting to adopt a dog and realizing that the entire time, this started around the time I turned 40, in fact, because I was around the pandemic, right? And it started then because that's when I started to feel like, oh, the life that I created for my daughter is not enough. I need to mimic a 2-parent household and, full family and siblings as much as possible. So I'm just going to get a dog. So what's funny is that once I made that decision, I've completely released that. I made peace with not having a second child. I think I also had moments of like, oh my gosh, if I had a second child, like I had moments where I was like, Mika, I can't even get you ready. Like you have to get yourself ready. Like I'm over here cleaning up poop. Your brother dog like pooped and it spread everywhere. And like, I got to do this. And so I was like, there were times that I just wanted to sit down with her and watch TV and I couldn't because this dog was howling. And I just was like, oh, this is a little bit of an insight of what I would have been to a mom of two, right? Granted, this is a puppy and not a child, but they are, I would honestly say in many ways, they're harder because I don't get, like, you have to learn how dogs work versus with babies. I think they're to me, I was like, they were self-explanatory to me, but with dogs, you have to understand how they function. And so it was harder. And I released this feeling of not enoughness, this insufficiency. And I had to release a lot of shame and a lot of guilt around you should have known better and you hurt your child and how could you do this and all the things. And so I just want to say, like, don't be afraid of like making the decisions. But then like being radically honest with yourself on why did I want this in the first place? Why did I make the decision? Was it because it was something that I truly wanted? Or was it because I thought that having this goal or having this thing was going to make me feel like enough or help me escape how I feel about my current circumstances? Because in both cases for me, it was helping me escape the feeling of, having failed, almost like failed in my marriages and not being able to keep it, together and all the things. And so it was a story that I wanted to share with you all because especially when you are very smart and you are very, very logical, you truly will believe that you want this thing, that this milestone or this whatever is really going to help you feel complete. But like the best way to go about it is to say, how is it that everything that I have and everything that I am is enough right now? Would I still want this thing, and to what urgency and in what way? Because again, when you're so smart, you really can talk yourself into thinking that you want things. And again, I'm bringing this up because I heard so many stories this weekend of like goals that people want and almost using someone else's success against themselves in the same way that I maybe use like 2-parent households who are homeowners and have like, fully stacked retirements in the bank and like all these things against myself as if that means that either I can't have it or that I'm lesser than because I don't have it. So we really can use what other people have against ourselves. And then we think, well, if I have what they have, then I'm also going to feel X or Y. I'm also going to be enough. And I just would encourage you to run it through that filter. Do I want this so that I can feel a certain way about myself? And why don't I feel that now? And do I want this thing because it's going to help me escape from how I see myself now, from how I feel about myself now? And it's a gut reaction. It's like a gut instinct. Do I want this thing because it's going to help me escape? So I just wanted to share that with y'all. These are all things that I, even as a coach, even as someone who coaches people on a regular basis, it's like the motivation for things is so important because the more that we can find sufficiency in what we have and in who we are as we pursue the things that we want to pursue, we really will realize how many of them are really band-aids versus things we really want. And again, the goal itself is neutral. The goal can be wonderful. It's just, it affects how you show up to it, and it affects whether or not the power that you give that goal over you until you get there, even if it is something that you truly want. So thank you all for just listening. Like I said, this was something that I wasn't sure that I wanted to share, but I think I needed to process like my own like shame and guilt about it, make peace with it, and really see it as something that was necessary for me to go through in order for me to release this feeling of insufficiency and for it to ultimately be of service to others. So that's it. Thank you all for being with me. Would love to hear if this resonated with you, and I will see you all in the next episode.